This is The Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles, iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. It is the day after the Super Bowl, and Christine Leahy, as always, is joining me.
You look really tan today. Is that possible?
Well, I was outside, did a little walking yesterday. Is that it?
Maybe. Without some SPF?
Yeah, our weather here in Los Angeles is good. I'm not sure about the rest of the country. I want to start today because you have a brother, right? A brother and you, two kids in the family. Okay, you have two brothers.
Yes.
And I have a sister in my family. And, it's interesting. I've always found this fascinating when it comes to families, when it comes to businesses, when it comes to sports. Proximity to greatness doesn't equal greatness. Now, you think it would, and let me explain that. When I was a kid growing up, my local football team, because we didn't get the Seahawks until the late 70s, my local football team was the University of Washington. We had like pre-Nick Saban, Don James, great for like 20 years. Rose Bowl. I mean, Washington was like a national power, top 5 program with Don James. And he had a longtime assistant, I'm not going to call him out, but a longtime assistant defensive coordinator for 20 years. And then Don James retired, national champ, gave it to the longtime assistant, and like 5 years later, the program was in the tank. And you're like, wait a minute. How could you be around the best coach in college football for 20 years, every day at practice, watching his meetings, and then you get the job, and you were smart enough to be a good coordinator, but you get the job, and 5 years later, maybe 3, it unraveled. Because proximity to greatness, strangely enough, doesn't equal greatness. Your dad can be a winner and driven and aspirational and smart and decent. But if he has 4 boys, one becomes a meathead. It's just the law of averages, and I've never been able to figure it out. You'd think if you were around smart, you were around great, you just be like, oh, that's how you do it. I mean, look at how many of Nick Saban's assistants and Bill Belichick's assistants and coordinators fizzled out. So here we go. 3 of Belichick's guys are now going to be given head coaching jobs, and I'm going to give them a report card this morning how I think they'll do. It was announced 30 minutes ago that Josh McDaniels, Bill Belichick, offensive coordinator, 2 different stints at it, Tom Brady's right-hand man, Josh McDaniel, is going to be the coach of the Indianapolis Colts. How do I think he'll do? I'm going to give him an A-. First of all, he inherits Andrew Luck. He's got a very good GM. They got plenty of cap space. And I think he's learned from his past mistakes. The negatives are his owner's a little loopy. And do we know if Andrew Luck is really 100%? What if he's only 80? The job's not as good. I think this is an A- hire. Why an A-? Well, I mean, if you had hired Nick Saban, it'd be an A+. So he hasn't proven he can be a head coach, but I think between the GM, the quarterback, the cap space, I didn't even mention they've got the number 3 pick in the draft. So you can give Andrew Luck that Penn State running back. You can give him that great left tackle from the University of Texas. You can give him a good pass rush end. So you're going to give Andrew Luck another potential star. Okay, so that's the first Patriot. Next to Bill Belichick, all these years, you'd think it'd be a home run. Proximity to greatness does not guarantee greatness. All right, the second guy that got the job is Mike Vrabel. He got a job in Tennessee. Okay, here's the positives. He does have a talented quarterback. They hired Matt LaFleur, who learned under Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. I think he's a pretty sharp kid. And they have a pretty talented roster with cap space. The negatives, the Titans have a history of ineptitude. Mariota is good. He's got limitations. Vrabel's only been a coordinator for 1 year. And by the way, in Houston, the stats went down, not up. My grade on this is a B-. I think it should succeed, and I think to some level it will succeed, mostly based on quarterback there, good enough, coordinator coming in with a great reputation. And Vrabel's the defensive guy to figure out that side of the ball. Here is the third guy that sat right next in all those rooms and all those plane trips and all those meetings and all that film study, Matt Patricia. Here's the positives. He's the new coach of the Detroit Lions. The good news, they have an established quarterback, Matthew Stafford. I like Matthew. And they have a competent GM in Bob Quinn. My sources tell me, I don't know Bob, really sharp dude. The negatives, it's the Lions. You face Aaron Rodgers twice a year. Dude's never worked for another NFL team. And I got to be honest, he kind of has the look, sound, and feel of an assistant. Hat on backwards, goofy T-shirts. I mean, I got to be honest. Sometimes you look at a guy and you're like, he's a vice president. He's not a president. Untamed beard, hat on backwards guy. Oh, I know. He's very, very smart. So there are my report cards this morning. Josh McDaniels, I believe, will succeed A-. They will become a playoff team. Matt Vrabel, and this is the history, good defensive coaches, Mike Vrabel, good defensive coaches who give the offense to somebody else have a history of winning in this league. You know, Pete Carroll, defensive guy. Bill Belichick, defensive guy. There's a lot of those guys that have won in this league. Defensive guys who have a quarterback and a smart offensive coordinator. So there you go. There are my report cards. But it is amazing the way it works, and it always surprises me that proximity to greatness so often doesn't equal greatness. Let's segue to this. For the first time in his career, Bill Belichick's getting heat in Boston. And you know how Boston is. It's a hazmat spill of homerism. Deflategate, they're against us. Spygate, world's against us. 22-page ESPN article, they're against us. At all costs, they defend their Patriot lore and their New England heroes. Until yesterday, Belichick getting called out. How in the world can you bench Malcolm Butler? Your defense isn't deep. Eagles have a great tight end, a running game, decent receivers, tremendous O-line, clever head coach. You needed Malcolm Butler, and Belichick is getting crushed. And do you know why? This is, folks, what they call standards. New England went 13-3, went into the season without Julian Edelman, lost their other great receiver in the game, Brandon Cooks, won the AFC Championship with no Gronk in the second half, and lost to a really good team. This is the downside. Ask LeBron about standards. You get to the NBA Finals 7 times. Look at the Cavs now. What about it? They'll get to the playoffs. But here's what's funny. The positioning this morning is that Belichick had a bad Sunday and that Doug Peterson had a great Sunday. You do realize the mental gaffes by the coaching staff in Philadelphia Sunday. With 2 weeks to prepare, they had 12 men on the field early in the game. With 2 minutes and 3 seconds left, and a first down wins the game, they ran the ball instead of going for it. The clock was already going to get stopped. That was an opportunity to pick up a first down and seal it. They ran right into the line. Huge break, New England, allowing them to get it back. And by the way, then 2:45 left. Nelson Aguilar, you may remember, ran out of bounds. Something a Patriot receiver would not do. Saving New England a timeout. Remember the Nelson Aguilar play? What is he doing? That's coaching as much as playing there. And on the Hail Mary, there was a clear illegal contact before the throw, and the officials just didn't call it. It's called standards. This morning, Belichick is being called out for a guy that had a bad week of practice, who came a day late, and who got busted for something I'll let somebody else report. And we're calling out the best football coach of our lives, who got to a Super Bowl with no Edelman, no Dante Hightower, no Gronk in the second half of the AFC Championship, and almost won this puppy without Brandon Cooks, too. Doug Peterson and that staff had 4 moments of really, really tenuous, really iffy coaching. But in Philadelphia, even if they lost the game, what the story would have been? Hey, Doug Peterson's on the right track. They got to the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. They lost their MVP, their left tackle. Come on, NFC was way better. Let's take a deep breath. Belichick has become the iPhone. Constantly evolving, best thing on the market, life-changing. But every time the iPhone comes out with a new version, we find that one irritating thing or that one small flaw and we eat it for lunch. Never forget this about Malcolm Butler. He was undrafted. Belichick found him at the University of West Alabama. He was a no-star recruit. Nick Saban couldn't find him in his own state and region. Now, you don't have to like what Belichick did with Malcolm Butler, and I didn't. Sit him out for a quarter, maybe a half. But when you reach 7 straight NBA Finals, we go nuts over a bad January. And when you get to the Super Bowl, almost 50% of your Patriot career, we expect better. And maybe we're being unrealistic. All right, good to have you in today. There's going to be on the show today, Doug Gottlieb stops by. So does Chris Broussard. Mike Pereira, we're hoping to wrangle today because there's a couple of things going on with the rules, which I think are incredibly relevant. And I want to talk about that before too long. About 2 calls in that game. The NFL is going to attack. I believe those 2 plays in the game for Philadelphia yesterday have a chance, and this is good for you, the fans, to change the way the catch is officiated. So we have a lot today. Don't go anywhere. Valentine's Day is just a little more than a week away, February 14th, Wednesday. Have you thought about what you're going to get that special somebody? How about this one? You've done flowers before. What about Sherry's Berries? Go ahead and think inside the box this Valentine's. Okay, right now you get 20% off any gift over $29 at Sherry's Berries. These are juicy strawberries dipped in milk chocolate, dark chocolate, white chocolate goodness, topped with nuts, dark chocolate chips. You choose the delivery date today, and it's guaranteed. Okay, Valentine's Day is next week. Only one way to get 20% off. Go to berries.com, 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 and enter the code HERD at checkout. That's berries.com, code HERD, HERD. These are amazing. We've had them around the office for the last couple of days. They always send us samples. Berries.com, enter the code HERD for 20% off.
We get to strike? Saying okay.